I'm going to challenge our listeners on Facebook or through Messenger or all the other ways in which you can contact us. Let us know where you're listening to this podcast right now. The reason being is I want to create a pie chart as to see where everybody is when they listen to us. I was at a wedding and was introduced to somebody that is one of our listeners. I'm not going to name.
Okay.
You're James. I listened to you on the podcast, which was a very surreal moment for me.
Bet it was.
Because I've not had that happen before. So, yeah, it was quite funny. But in amongst the conversations, I found out that one of our listeners listens to us in the bar.
Okay, I see.
So you're sitting at the tap end this time. I'm not sitting there. I can't stand sitting with my taps in my back.
Well, we don't record in the bath.
No, we're not recording in the bath. We're just with our listener in the bath, passing him the rubber duck every now and again when he looks bored.
Dangerous to listen using electronic devices in the bath. It's not something that we would recommend.
Well, I would assume I didn't clarify the matter whether there was any electric cords in the water. But so there you go. We've got one listener listens in the bath, one listener's next to his wife in bed, one when he walks the dog.
Yeah, one when she does the gardening.
Yep. So yeah, let us know.
Okay.
See where most of our listeners listen to us. When I was having the conversation with them, I just said to him, I said, I won't tell Malcolm, but when we do it next record, I'll mention it. And I just wait for the sound effects to come out because Malcolm will have a right giggle with that.
I can make it sound like we're in the bath. That'll help.
that squeaking noise chasing the soap.
Yeah, wearing the soap.
Mm-hmm.
That's something else. That's a joke about two nuns. First rude joke I ever knew. Right, are you ready?
I'm ready. Hello and welcome back. I'm James Skiffins.
And I am Malcolm Childs, and we are just making conversation.
Where we discuss the model making hobby that brings us sheer joy and utter despair in equal measures.
From petty officers to petty squabbles and everything in between, we are going to be just making conversation. Remember, there are other podcasts that you can listen to.
Plastic Model Mojo.
Scale Model Podcast.
Plastic Posse Podcast.
On the Bench.
Model Geeks.
Sprue Cutters Unions.
All subjects.
Built Sideways.
Model Biker Ploden.
The Micro Machines Podcast.
Am Show Podcast.
And the Modeling Insanity Podcast. Just head to modelpodcasts.com.
If you've enjoyed this ramble of words, you can show your appreciation for free by leaving a 5-star review on your favourite podcast provider. We've stopped using Buy Me a Coffee for now. However, if you still want to show your appreciation with some coin, it is easy. Click over to paypal.me/podcast JMC.
In this episode, we will be just making conversation with Paul Tyer from Keycraft and talking about large-scale model boats.
Making model ships is a mystical part of the hobby, but we all have a fascination with these large monsters. Could it be just the subject itself that makes us go all to sea?
When is the best time to go overboard and at what scale? Where do you begin? Why don't we take some time and speak to someone that has the passion and ask those all-important questions before we get our feet wet? I met Jeff.
You did?
I did. I met Jeff from the from the thingy. He said, I'm the Jeff, which is fun. Because I remember the Jeff from the Lego movie. Do you remember the cat?
Mm-hmm.
He was called Jeff. I had a lovely conversation with him. He really appreciates the podcast. So hello, Jeff. Hope you're listening.
Hello, Jeff.
Where are you listening from? You met someone as well?
I did. I met two. Yeah, well, hello to both of you. You look very dapper in your suits.
So we need to record this podcast then. What's going on in the world of James? Let's start there.
What's going on with me? Well, to be honest, I've actually managed to do a bit of model making, would you believe? I have been busy testing out the outlaw paints on some kits. A couple of 1/72 kits that I've got. One was the English Electric Lightning, and the other one was the Grumman Duck. But I also managed to take off the shelf of doom, if you like, a 148 Spitfire Mark 22, which was just waiting for paint, which was very fortunate. So 2 out of the 3 are basically complete now, which is lovely. A little bit of time on the bench is always welcome. The duck is sitting over there half naked, all its feathers taken out, and I've just got to put them back in the right order. So yeah, not far off from there. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing, really. Busy working and some other bits and pieces that I've got on the go. But can't really talk about them.
Why not? You can talk about them.
Because there's a bit of a secret squirrel, couple of them. I may well be doing a YouTube, woohoo, at last. So there's that. And then obviously, as we've done the woohoo,
Moosaroo Cup, the Moosaroo Cup. Let's talk about the Moosaroo Cup. Boom! Woohoo!
There's the Moosaroo build, which we did the unboxing for. And it's the lovely ICM Ural 4320.
Yes.
Military truck. And I don't know what happened. I'm wondering whether a container ship broke loose one of the containers and set free lots of model kits, because lots of people suddenly got them.
Yeah. Well, I did, because I when it was revealed, I thought, oh, that's a small kit. Oh, not many bits. It can't be that much money. Must be relatively cheap. So I went onto my favourite model shop online and I purchased exactly the same kit for 15 quid. So I've got one too.
Yes. In the meantime, because you did that live without everybody knowing, and in the meantime, about half a dozen other people have done exactly the same. Yeah, so there's a group build within a group build within a group build, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a nice show of community spirit.
Yes, I thank everybody very much for their support. We've had a very small conversation about what the options might be, what we could potentially do. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I was taken aback, I must admit.
Well, we thought it was a ship, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. I think that might be me hoping it was a ship.
You got a secret ship love.
Well, to me, it seemed like a logical thing, given the fact that lots of these model kits will be winging its way across the oceans.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't. But that's okay. That's cool. It's a nice little model.
Yep.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I still haven't made my mind up.
It is really nice. Yeah. Looking at them, plastic is a lovely little thing. Lots of potential for lots of scratch building, other bits and pieces. The only rule is that you have to make it look like the thing that it's supposed to be. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So you can add whatever you want to it, stowage or whatever. Or it does say conversions in the instructions. However, I do need to clarify with the head Moosaroo judge as to what conversions are allowed, because I found lots of different conversions, but then it does change the number of the vehicle. So I'm a little bit conscious of that, because obviously I don't want to be disqualified. But I don't think it's going to matter as long as it looks like the truck, i.e. the front looks like the front.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, just got to clarify that a little bit. But I got a couple of options that I'm toying with.
Okay.
And it will be something a little bit unusual, which is pretty much my normal thing.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That's pretty cool.
What's the name of the Facebook page that's been started?
The Facebook page is so complicated. It is the Moosaroo Cup.
That's all it's called. Okay, it's a group that started by On the Bench, I believe.
On the Bench, yeah.
Yeah, and they're building that, and then other podcasters have joined that with their, as far as I know, it's a public thing, and
it is.
Let anyone join. I joined, so they must let anybody in.
Yeah, no, it's a public group, and what some of the non-participants of the Moosaroo build have suggested is that they build something alongside everyone else. So it's become a group build. I think I right in remembering. I don't think actually anything has been chosen as such, but I would assume a subject matter that's around the same sort of area where this particular one's come from. So Ukraine, Russia,
Well, I think it would make sense to build the same kit if you can help get hold of one.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's really good because, the community are behind everybody. I mean, obviously, a few friends and stuff have shown their support towards me, but not just towards me, but towards all the podcasters that are involved. And I know a couple of them have started already.
Wow. Cool. Anything else on the bench?
The only thing that's on the bench that's not quite finished is my tarp build. Yes, I have actually managed to do a tarp build.
Oh.
That is done to the point where I've just got to weather the tarp and make sure it looks right.
Ooh.
It does have a figure on there as well. A tree.
Ooh.
Tree's done. The base is done. It's just the figure and the tarp that needs a little bit of fettling, I think would be the right phrase. If you haven't seen it, it is a big stack of jerry cans with a tarp over it. The tarp is purposely made to look worn and well used. It has a nice little tree that hangs over it to give a bit of shade. And someone's standing there scratching their head going, who put all this stuff under this tarp?
What's the point of this group build?
What idiot come up with that idea? That's pretty much done, so that's good. I have got another build for the tarp group build that will surprise everybody at Telford.
Well, the surprise is because you'll get it finished, you mean?
Well, yeah. The other one I will keep under wraps, under the tarp.
Ah, good.
How about yourself? What's on your bench? What have you been up to?
I haven't got any plans to do any more tarp builds. I've gone and done my one and done that one completed. I did notice, talking about tarp builds, a Romanian entry.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Ron, who's out in Romania currently, he was at a model show and he saw a tarp. Hopefully I'll put that up on the tarp build Facebook page. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That was quite cool. The Romanian tarp. What have I been up to? I finished my hand solo that I was working on. I'm looking around for him, but he's not actually in here. He's in my lounge.
Oh.
But he's been painted. He's 18 inches tall from root to tip, which is massive. And he'll be going on eBay because I haven't got anywhere to store him at all.
Oh.
If you can complain, go buy him. Then also, I've started my space shuttle and 747 build.
Have you?
Yes. So it's here.
Oh, my goodness.
See? The idea is that I'm going to be building it with the shuttle sat on top of the 747, like they did, because I saw the shuttle and the 747 land at Stansted in the UK in 1983. And I believe you were there too.
I was, yeah.
We didn't know each other then, did we?
No.
The kit has got loads of raised panel lines. I'm not going to bother with changing any of that. That's just the way it is. It's going to be on a base, and it's going to be on, exactly how it was when landed. So it's going to be loads of 80s people walking around underneath it. That's the plan. So I'm just starting to build that, slowly work my way through it. It's going to be good. It's going to look great. So doing that. What else am I working on? That's it currently. And that's my only project. That's it. We need to read out a message.
Yes, we did have some messages. You're right.
Ken Reed on Facebook during the Moosaroo Cup reveal that we did. He said, "Hey guys, Ken from the Amsho Plastic Modeling Podcast."
Oh.
He said, "I absolutely love the shows from Tuttle in Oklahoma. I am excited about this reveal," says Ken. Welcome, Ken.
Yes.
Amsho is a new plastic modeling podcast that you can go and listen to.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It was fun, actually, I must admit. It wasn't what I was expecting, and the reaction was from everybody was, I think, pretty much the same. So
it was fun. We should do more of those pop-up lives.
We should. Yeah.
Just whack them up.
We are changing your way that you can make donations to us if you wish to. Buy Me a Coffee do not associate themselves with PayPal anymore. So setting up accounts and other bits and pieces has been a bit traumatic.
It's been fine for me. I've just been watching you.
Yeah, so we're trying to find some easier ways in which we can provide that ability to you. And for the time being, we're going to use PayPal. We have actually also changed the way in which we record our podcasts slightly.
Yes.
In that the people that we were using previously have changed the policies and different bits and pieces. And unfortunately, it's no longer viable to use them. So we are using Zoom for now.
Yes.
Which hopefully will be good. If you notice any difference in the quality, I'm sure you won't because Malcolm will be all over that anyway. Let us know, good or bad. Malcolm spends a lot of time on the editing anyway, so I'm sure it'll be fine. And you probably won't even notice it. Well, yeah, so we've had some things in which we've had to adapt to.
Do you know, I'm thinking, as we're discussing the quality, I'm just going to downgrade the quality of just this little bit, so it sounds awful. On purpose. Normally it's like this. We just need to introduce and talk to Paul. He's stuck in the green room. It's not really a green room, it's a green tent, so we should let him out.
A bit more like a green cubicle. with blue water without any life rafts or life belts. Yeah, I think you may have guessed we're going to be talking about all things ships. So we have a special guest with us today.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Welcome. James and I have never built a ship, so we're really looking forward to talking to you.
It's an interesting subject, and it's quite a complex subject, but it's good fun.
Why don't you tell us what you are doing and where you come from and why you might be good to talk to on this podcast?
Right, well, I come from originally Kent, but I'm actually living in Orkney, which is or was the home of the Royal Navy for the First and Second World War. I have a lot of interest in sort of engineering, hence why I'm sort of much more on the side of the ships because of the engineering side of it. Started off in the 1970s building plastic kits, collecting cereal carton tops, as you did in them days, to collect your models.
Well, yeah, that's right. You used to get them in cereals, didn't you?
That's right, yeah. And you sort of come home from school and there was the envelope sitting there with the model in it, and it's like, yeah, here we go. That's my week's worth of modelling, you know.
Yeah.
And I've just grown from there, really. I've still got masses of aircraft and tanks that I still enjoy doing. It's the large-scale models that I really enjoy, you know, sort of things like the Royal Oak and the Hampshire that I've done that are at least a metre long, if not bigger.
Yeah, well, we're going to be putting pictures up of those. They're amazing. So is there a particular scale of ship that is important to you, or do you need to know what you're building? Or
it's a combination, really. I mean, let's say you came to me and said, I'd like a replica of a specific battleship. It'll be then a case of what sort of size do you want? Have you got space to put a large model? Because the Royal Oak is 1.5 meters long, and that's at 1:128 scale.
Oh,
Right.
But the Yamato, the Japanese battleship, at 96 scale is 4 meters long.
yeah.
It's a monster.
And are these scratch built?
No, you can actually buy what they call a semi-kit. Basically, that's a fiberglass hull, the running gear, which is propellers, the rudders, etc., and then a basic fittings kit. So you'll have like your guns, your lifeboats, things like that, but not the superstructure and deck in a lot of cases, because most of these are designed as radio-controlled vessels. So people will actually scratch build the superstructure to what they need, because you've got to take it apart, put batteries in, radio gear, turn things on and off. And with the likes of sort of the Yamato, because it's so big, when you put all the ballast in, it takes about 4 of you to lift it. So you can imagine trying to put that in and out of the water. It's not your everyday sort of bathtub type boat.
Yes, yeah. So but maybe we should rewind a bit, actually. So you're a professional model maker. You make your living from putting plastic together, and your focus is ships. Yeah. That's
the main focus. I've done a lot of commission work for other people. You know, I've had building contractors come to me, want a building complex, new housing complex laid out for them. I've done sort of other projects for local archaeological sites up here, where they wanted actual sites, you know, restored and done. So yeah, I do everything basically, but my main focus is the engineering of the ships.
I've just taken a cheeky screenshot, and looking behind you, you have a lot of equipment, very interesting things, and things that probably the normal model maker doesn't have. So what sort of things do you have in your workshop that we probably don't?
Well, I've got a handful of 3D printers, because obviously if you're doing small work, and a lot of it, for instance, the French battleship's got 40 anti-aircraft guns that are identical. And so if you're going to make those up from scratch, you want to be able to do it identically and quickly. But I've got laser cutters, I've got casting equipment, and general sort of modelling equipment as well. Directly behind me is a laser cutter. I could put a front door in it, put it that way. It's big enough to slide a front door in.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is huge, yeah. and on top of it, if I move to one side, 1.5 meter long, 124 scale fast patrol ship.
Gosh.
And that was used by the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard in 1969, 1970s.
Good Lord. Is that a commission build?
No, that's my own one I'm doing for myself. finally getting around to doing one for me.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, I guess you kind of have to keep that up, don't you? You have to keep building something for yourself occasionally.
I've got a goal to have it finished by September next year because I'm chair of the local model club up here in Orkney. It's our model exhibition next September next year. We have it every 2 years, basically. So that's my target, to get it finished for that.
Well, talking about model shows, do you get out into the big mainland and visit any shows at all?
I do occasionally. It's quite often 2 flights or a ferry and a flight or vice versa, you know. So it's not an everyday sort of thing. For a trip to London is a 3-day round trip for me.
You only live just north of London. It takes about that long for you to get anywhere.
Oh, yeah, to be honest, it takes me about 3 days to get into the centre of London. Definitely.
Well, it's actually quicker to go to Norway. I can get to Bergen quicker than I can get to London.
Gosh. Are there any model shows on in mainland Europe that you could attend?
Probably. I've never really sort of looked into, because Berlin's got a massive naval model museum there, which I'd like to go to. And there's a couple of others, museums I've seen that follow me that I'd like to go to. But again, it's actually sort of working out the logistics of it and the expenditure.
When you, going back a bit, when you were younger, you know, past the cereal box stage of model kits, were you focused on the ship side of things, or was it just anything that went, or were you honing into that quite early on?
I started off with aircraft because my grandfather fought in the First World War, and then he was air warden, a fire warden at Biggin Hill Airfield.
Oh, wow.
It was sort of more the aircraft side of it to start with, because also his garden and his house overlooked the airfield. So, of course, when they had the air shows back in those days, you used to sit in the back garden and watch them. You know, the Spitfires, the Hurricanes and Vulcan and all the rest of it. But no, I've always been interested in engineering sort of aircraft mainly as I was growing up. I'd done the odd plastic kit ship, sort of the battleships. We moved to Orkney and I thought I'm going to have a go at some of the bigger stuff because I've got the space to do it. It's sort of taken over from there. I've had commissions. I'm just doing a quote at the moment for a large commission for a Spanish gallery that want one to go on a world tour exhibition, and that's another 4-meter long ship, but that's going to take about 3 people to help me with that one because it's a complex internal workings, lighting, the whole lot as well. So it's quite a complex thing.
Wow. Building on what you just said, all those elements that you are able to do yourself, or have you got to do, for example, the lighting is not something you're overly great with, and there's someone that you use for that?
A lot of it I can do myself because I've done variations of it, but it's sometimes you need extra pairs of hands just to help out with the larger stuff, you know, especially when you're like, for instance, if I did the Titanic, you've got to do all the plating on the hull to give it the right feel. So that takes probably 6 months to do a ship that's about 3 meters long, just to do all the plating and get the hull finished. I love doing things like that. It's a little challenge. That's why I look at it.
So you have all the skills for that build. That's a lot of knowledge.
I wouldn't say I have all the skills, but I have enough ability to sort of work around any of my shortcomings, you know, one way or another. Bit of YouTube videos here and there, and looking at some of your followers and what they're doing and things like that. So I suppose now nearly 60, I've sort of got to learn a few skills.
Yeah. You pick up skills as you go along, don't you?
Yeah.
Out of the large scale model you're building, is there a particular part in which you enjoy the most?
I think a lot of it is the research, because like the Royal Oak, for instance, that took about 2 months research because the specifications were we needed to make her look as she was just before she was attacked by the submarine here in Scapa Flow. So I needed to research what aircraft she had on, if she did, and all of the rest of the information. And that was great fun doing that. It gives you a lot of knowledge about the vessel. It also helps you understand more about what you need to do to achieve that, because you're getting lots of photographs, you're getting a lot of information. And lucky enough, because I've got friends in the Navy that are quite high up, they will help me find information. You know, like when I did HMS Hampshire for the Battle of Jutland event in 2016, well, I made the Hampshire for that event. Lucky enough, the War Graves Committee I got involved with, they were able to find me out the colour specifications for the hull, because First World War, there's less documentation there is in the Second World War. Because some of the drawings, where shipyards are closed, the drawings have moved from one place to another. And then some have got destroyed over the years because a lot of the drawings are done on a canvas type material rather than a paper.
Oh, okay. Right.
So they stretch or they shrink. And when you scan something like that, they actually have to have them pinned out on a desk for about a week just to relax the material before they can actually digitally copy it.
Gosh, so it's a hell of a process then.
Yeah. And it's not cheap either.
No, I bet it isn't.
Yeah, I know that you're building your. Did you say it was a torpedo boat behind you?
No, it's what they call fast patrol vessel. It's basically an offshore Coast Guard type vessel.
And is that going to be a remote control?
Yeah, 2 motors in it. It's got 2 sets of batteries, 2 speed controllers, so that we've got more control over it. It's going to have, hopefully, lighting and all the guns moving on it, rotating with the crew as well, sitting at the positions on the guns.
Wow.
The radar's going to rotate as well, is what the plan is. So.
All singing, all dancing.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Is there somewhere local that you could then put it out on the lake and drive it around, or is that not something you're going to do? I don't, tell us about the hobby of remote control shipbuilding, because I'm sure there's a lot of money and time gone into these things, and the last thing you need to do is be pulling out the bottom of Scupper Flow.
They don't really like salt water. That's the problem. Lucky enough, we've got a proper boating lake up here. There is a yacht club up here that sail small yachts and so forth in it, and they race them against people from mainland Scotland. They come up or they go down and vice versa. So I'm going to run it on there. But the idea is really just to build it as a showpiece, but with the ability to actually run it as well, as and when it's not too windy up here, shall we say.
Yeah, I can imagine that can be a bit of a headache. Have you got items now that you can go and run on the lake, or is that going to be your first one? This is actually going to be my first remote control version. I've done numerous static models, but this is the first remote control one for me.
What about rural railways? Because I know that you've done some railway work in the past. Is that something that you've always been interested since you're eating cereal, or is that a long time passion? Tell me about your railway interest.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of been on and off for many years. But the funny thing was, when we moved to Orkney, we bought a house, didn't go in the loft because there was no loft ladder. So the surveyor just stuck his head up there and went, yeah, fine, no problem, blah, blah, blah. Here's the key, sort of thing. I got up in the loft and found a 30-foot railway up in the loft.
Oh, my God. Have you seen the film Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
Like in there.
So I'm in the middle of exploring that. Yeah, so it turned up and we didn't know it was there. And I'm just gradually restoring it. And that's sort of part of the way how I got the business set up, because that sort of spurred me on to do more. Yeah, I'm getting there.
So this 30-foot railway, did it have all the bells and whistles, or was it just the layout?
Basically, the gentleman that built it passed away 8 years before we bought the property, and unfortunately, the rolling stock was all sold off, but the baseboard and all the tracks there. So I've ripped all the track up and I gradually replaced it with new because it was starting to age and so on. Just gradually rebuilding it. It's good fun. And it's all going to be digital with a computer control system on it. So it'll make it a little bit easier to control. Lots of engines flying around with smoke coming out of it and all the bells and whistles in, I guess. Not so much the smoke because they're N-gauge, so they're half the size of the Hornby style locos. But yeah, we can still get a lot of operation on it. But that's a little side project. A little side project. Wow. Are you going to put any ships on that? Any docks or anything like that? There will be a little harbour, because when it was designed, he had designed a section to have a harbour in it. Oh, okay. So I want to try and do that as well, because he hand painted all the backdrops and they're absolutely beautiful artwork. So I'm gradually cleaning them and restoring them, and then lacquering them so they're protected. Because all hand-painted northwest of England and Scottish border type regions. And they're really nice. So it's just trying to restore them all at the moment. So you sound as if this is not just a project, it's a passion, but it's also, it feels like he's handed you the torch without you meaning to. Is that how you feel about that project? Yeah, because John passed away before he completed the layout anyway. There was a section that he had laid out the track but never actually finished. It turns out one of our friends, it was at a hotel that we used to stay at when we first started coming up here. It was This is his sister's house.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know that. So everyone loved this particular guy that built the railway, John. And yeah, so part of me wants to sort of finish off what he started in between doing everything else I do.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think I would feel the same. I'd feel certainly an element of need to ensure that it was finished for him and to honour him, if you like, especially the character he sounds he was. The only downside to that, of course, is that you're going to have lots of people, locals, trundling up and down in your loft, I guess.
Yeah, we've already had quite a few say, "Oh, is the railway still there?" But I don't mind that.
That's brilliant.
But it's the same when I do a ship, like the Royal Oak, because there was so many people lost. It's the same thing. You sort of want to put that little extra energy into doing something because it's a memorial piece in some respects.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I should imagine that puts quite a lot of pressure on you for those sort of builds as well, because you want to make it right and you want to honour those people that were lost. So I can imagine that's a great deal of pressure.
It is, but it's also I think of it as a bit more of an honour that I've been asked to do something like that. Because whenever I build a model, I don't think of it as, what am I going to see at the end of it? I just want to do a model for the best I can for someone. If I see a young person look at that model and get excited over it, then that may be one new person that comes into the modelling hobby. That's the most important thing, carries on our hobby and our enjoyment. I worked with Kathy Millett on the Great Model Railway Challenge. And when I was doing bits for them, I was showing some of the children at a show afterwards what we did. The little faces lit up with excitement. And I thought, if that excites just one person and they pick up a model kit, our hobby will hopefully continue. And that's same with the model club. I do the same with that. I hopefully can help a few people grow their skills and maybe enjoy the hobby. And that's what it's about as far as I'm concerned.
I think most modelers feel like that. In the years of their modelling, if they can inspire at least one person, pick up a kit, have a go, then the sense of achievement is enormous. Watching the show, there was a lot of that came through very, very much through the programme. I certainly got that from the show. So,
well, I was on the first series, and we were the track laying ninjas, the one that did the EastEnders layout, and I actually did the tower block for it. So anyone that's seen it will have seen the tower block. And the manhole that went down through the baseboard and down to the floor, the deepest manhole going.
And what did Kathy think of those builds then?
She was very good, and so was Steve, the editor of the Railway magazine. Obviously, TV has to be cut in such a way that it continually keeps you wanting to view it rather than showing the whole story. And we got told off because we had little action figures moving around our layout because it was on time lapse, and we kept moving these figures about, and they went, "But we haven't got rights to use those. We can't use it." We had little characters, each of us, so we just moved them around,
Oh, no. Intellectual property or something, were they?
Yeah, basically. Little sticky bricks clipped together. The Legos.
Right, Legos. I think we can say that on here.
Yeah, we can, yeah. There are other bricks available.
Yeah, send us a pallet of stuff. It doesn't work that way, does it?
No.
Because you mentioned about Scarpa Flow and the Royal Oak, and it was taken down by a submarine. So I was just interested if you had interest in submarines, and there's a naval base up that way.
Yeah.
So I wondered if you had an interest in submarines as well as the floaty ones.
I do have an interest in like U-47, because obviously that was the German one that got through, because the navigation skills that Preen had was phenomenal. He got caught in fishing nets at one point, so he had to reverse out and then come back through the same bit, but without catching the fishing nets on the second attempt.
Oh gosh, right.
So yeah, it's interesting, but I've never built one, and to me it doesn't quite enthuse me as a ship would.
That's interesting, actually, because would that not provide you with your engineering side of things, to the fascination of how that would be put together? This is like a really ignorant comment to make, but would you consider that the engineering on something that doesn't go underwater to be less interesting? That makes sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think partly because it's underwater, you don't see much of it, and that's probably why I don't enjoy it quite as much. But if you look for on like YouTube or something for submarines, you have a look at some of the radio control ones because they actually got proper ballast tanks in, and they all fully functional. They are phenomenal, and some of them even fire like torpedoes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's not that long, I think about 6 months ago or so that I saw a video of one firing torpedoes and stuff, and that was quite interesting actually how they were doing that.
Wow, I haven't seen that one. I know I've seen someone build a submarine out of Lego. Yep, that's pretty cool. If you had a side of a submarine open with all the viewing of all the galley and the torpedo tubes and all the little guys moving around doing their thing, would that be something that you might be interested in?
Yeah, I think Revell or someone, they do a submarine like that, and it's about 3 foot long as a model. Yeah, and it's a complete cutaway, so you get everything, including crew and everything inside, and that's, as a model, would be a fantastic thing to build.
It wouldn't float though.
No.
Well, it's sort of float like that, wouldn't it?
You couldn't have it opened up and have it remote control, could you? You couldn't have both. So look, we're learning.
But they do make specific hulls for submarines that are designed for proper remote control, the running gear and everything else. Again, that's a completely different field to what I'm used to using. So.
Because I would have thought the engineering, especially remote control wise, would be very, very different to whatever you've done before. I can't even start to imagine what would be needed to do that. But I can imagine it being incredibly complex in putting something like that together.
I would have thought so, because you're actually involved with water, ballast to get the vessel to rise and fall through the water. But also, I think you have to use, I think it's 27 megahertz transmitters, because the modern 2.5 gigahertz stuff doesn't work underwater. So the radio signal drops off.
Oh,
from what I gather. I'm not 100% certain, but no doubt one of your listeners will put a comment up going, well, yeah, you've got to do this or you've got to do that, which I can understand, because I'm not conversant with that part. But
we'll get letters.
One thing I wanted to ask you was in relation to your detail that you get on your boats. And you were saying earlier, you mentioned you got some 3D printers. Can I just ask you, what sort of 3D printers do you use?
A handful of resin ones, and they're all set up with different resins. So I'll have a softer blend for doing one type of work, but then I've got a harder blend for doing a different type of work. Maybe a gun barrel I want on a harder blend because I want to make molds off of it, or it's a delicate part that's going to need a bit of strength to it. And then I've got FDM printers, which are extruded plastic ones. If I'm making up generic parts that aren't going to be seen, but they're internal structures or that you're going to coat over, but they're just there to give a frame for it. Different machines for different jobs, basically. The
gun barrel, let's pick on that because you mentioned it. So would you more likely print one, make a mold and do the process that way, or would you do multiple barrels on the printers?
Let's say it's a main gun for the Royal Oak, for instance. That would be a 15-inch gun, technically, about 125 to 150 mil long. I would print out a master, polish it all up, and then make a silicon mold from it, and then cast them in resin. Reason being is, with the resins that come out of 3D printers, in some cases, they become brittle in the sunlight. In other cases, they warp. So what I do is I cast them. My little modeler's trick is to actually thread a brass rod or something in the barrel before the resin sets. So then you've got the stiffness in it. But I'm trialing out another hollow barrel technique at the moment. So if you want a smoke generator and you want to send a puff of smoke out the end of the barrel, you can have your generators and you can have different effects with it.
Wow. That's cool.
Like a smoke ring.
Yeah. Like you fire the shell and you get the smoke residue. So.
Oh, wow.
I like that idea. Yeah. I can't even imagine how you do that. You would do that with some sort of bellows? You don't do it with a fan, I assume.
No, you use your smoke generator and basically you can get it to do a puff, and then it would just come out the barrel with a little puff of air behind it just to force it through the barrel.
Okay, so you need some sort of electronic knowledge as well then?
Yeah, there are kits available to do that with.
Gosh, I've bought a from one of the Chinese sites, a little smoke generator thing. Well, not smoke, it was It's going to generate steam, tiny particles of atomizer. That's what
Atomizer, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought of that at the time. I thought we could have a Millennium Falcon that opens up its gangplank, and you can have the steam and the spray coming down. That'd be quite fun. But I hadn't really thought about setting it up so that you could make smoke rings coming out of ships. Is that a normal thing? Is that a thing that people do?
If you go onto some of the other builders' websites or YouTube, you'll find that there's people that have done that, and they're out actually on the water. And they're going along, and these puffs of smoke come out the barrel ends as if they've been shot. And they're also putting sound in some of them as well, so you get the sound and then the smoke come out.
Yeah,
and some of those look quite amazing, especially with the really big ships.
Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, sound cards have become so small and easy to use in some respects. I mean, don't get me wrong, give me a sound card, I couldn't do anything with it, but I've certainly seen them, and I've been astonished actually of what you can achieve in such a small space. And yeah, you're right. I think the video I saw about the U-boat firing its torpedo, I'm fairly certain the cruiser had smoke from the guns on that particular video. It is pretty cool, I got to be honest. And this is the funny part. I mean, we've spoken about effects and stuff on dioramas and all that stuff, which is a static thing. I think we're both in agreement that it sort of looks wrong to a point. But the thought of remote controlled vessels firing, making the noises and the smokestacks smoking and all that sort of stuff, I'm liking that idea.
If it's used sparingly, it can look really, really good. I mean, it's like how far do you go when like weathering a model? Do you put on enough just to simulate it, or do you go? To me, I just like to add a little extra without it taking away the detail. It's like the Royal Oak. There's 120 stanchion pins on the rear deck. That's a Sunday afternoon's work just to put the pins in, and then that's 3 layers of copper wire I've got to go through those pins as well. So it takes like half a day to do that. But you put that level of work in, and then you weather it, but you don't want to weather it too much to lose that level of work that you put into it. So it's that fine balance. You want something, but not necessarily overpowering.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about static models, I think things like that, something that's moving and flashing and it doesn't work because you're looking at a snapshot. We talk about dioramas, looking at a snapshot in time. It would be cool to have a smoking chimney.
I think also if you've got a diorama, let's say you've got some military figures around a fire, then have a flickering fire effect with the figures there, because that with a little bit of delicacy, you could actually have quite a nice effect, because you could have the crew sitting around a fire trying to keep warm. But then you wouldn't want to go to the extent of adding masses of detail on, of lots more of effects on, because you would lose that. I think at the end of the day, it's what you as a modeler want. I just want to add a little bit just to enhance something rather than overpower it.
What would you? So I know you said it sticking a brass rod up your tube to keep it stiff is a. Well, I've said that out loud. That sounds terrible. Is your tip? Have you got any other modelling tips for boat builders or anything that you think that perhaps people don't know? Now is your chance to let them know.
I think if you're going to start with a large scale model ship, is really do your research. Think about how much time you've got, how much financially you can afford to do, because to buy a semi-kit for like the Royal Oak, for argument's sake, minimum you'll be looking is £500 to £600. And that's before you have to buy your paints, your glues, and all the superstructures and everything else. And you're looking a year to maybe 2 years building time on that for the average person. And you need to think about what skills you've got as well, because it's not like getting a kit out, the average Airfix or Revell kit or whatever, where you've got everything. You've got to start thinking, well, I'm going to have to create that part absolutely from the drawings. So you need to sort of ascertain if you've got the level of skills that you're comfortable doing it, or can you have someone to help you with it? But what I'm just about to start doing is half-hour consultations with people that are coming into the hobby that want to have a chat to see if they feel comfortable in doing so.
Oh.
And giving people a half hour of my time to help them understand if they've got the abilities to do it. Because the last thing you want to do is spend £500-600 out on a kit and then find out it's not really for me, especially this day and age.
Does happen a lot.
Yeah.
People buy the biggest kit they can see on the shelf. Some hobby shops will quite happily sell you that, not ask you about your skill, and then wonder why they got bored with the hobby because they haven't started small and built their skills up. So I like that idea.
Because I mean, if you're going to cut into a fiberglass hull, spend £200-300 on the hull maybe, and then you're going to cut holes in it. You need to make sure you're doing that right because you've only got one chance.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening,
No one's listening, James.
no, I know no one's listening. Anyone that's interested in ships and fears ships, shall we say, as it's on their wish list, where would you suggest to start?
It depends on really your ability. Is where I would say have a think about what you can do. What sort of skills have you got? What can you deal with? Because, as I say, a semi kit is completely different to the average box that you could buy off from the shop. And talk to people like, for instance, other manufacturers, or even if they want a consultation with me, they can just drop me an email and we'll arrange a half-hour consultation. There's no charge. And I'll help them work out what is the best way forward. Because, for instance, the Yamato at 4 meters long, that's a real monster of a boat to put together. And I've got one client that builds models on a regular basis, but he's even been on the phone to me about 4 times because he's hesitant to start it. But he's built 20 or 30 ships in his life.
And that's the thing. I see this an awful lot with people that like ships. They like model ships. They buy lots of kits and stuff. I've got the same scenario. I've got I've got aircraft. I've got all sorts of models, and I'm scared to touch them. I don't want to muck them up. Am I ready for it? Can I really do that yet? And that's sort of the question. Is I just scared to tip the toe in the water, for want of a better phrase.
What a modeler needs to think about is look at the project and see how they can break it down into small, manageable chunks. Your instruction manuals that you get in your plastic kits have done that for you. So if you can apply that process to your bigger scale models, potentially you've got a chance of succeeding. Talk to people at a model club, talk to your manufacturers, even if they want to arrange a time with me. Again, I've got no problem to do that, and we can sort of give them guidance to help them move forward. It's so disheartening to hear that someone started something but never finishes it.
That happens a lot of times. People trying to get into the hobby and haven't, like you say, haven't spoken to anyone before. And a lot of people in lockdown pull the kit out that they've had on top of their cupboard for many, many, many years, pull it down, then start working on it, and then put it back up there because it was either too hard or they got lost in what they were doing and they didn't know where to turn. Just become more frustrating than it is fun. The last thing you want to be in during lockdown was frustrated. Some good tips there.
So I'm going to ask one last cheeky question.
Go for it.
One of those moments, Malcolm. I'm so sorry, but I have a kit of a 1/72 Corvette.
Drink.
One of the kits I've got has got no hull. What would be the best process to make that hull? Would you make it as a whole hull? Does that make sense? Or would you break it down into the plates and build the superstructure inside it and go really down to the fine detail?
Well, there's 2 ways of doing it. You could either get drawings and scratch build it, which there's plenty of drawings about that you could easily get laser cut ribs, put the skin on and detail it. Or you could look at a supplier that makes fiberglass hulls and get a fiberglass hull because they do them in 96 and 72 scale. So you could potentially look at going down that route, which if you want it for speed purposes, for building to get it done in a quick time, that's your easiest route.
I quite fancy doing the scratch build, if I'm honest. But my only hesitant, Malcolm's nodding his head because, of course, it's not the easiest way, James. What else do we all expect? But my concern is if I scratch build the hull, then I'm going to just go nuts and do the whole damn thing, aren't I?
What you could do is you could scratch build the hull and then use your components that you've got in the kit as a template if you're going to sketch build the rest of it. If you can get the ship's drawings for the hull, it's so easy to make the ribs because you've already got the cross sections, and you'll also have all the positioning along the keel line already there on the drawings. So it's only a case of just put the keel line in and then start putting the cross sections in those allocated slots. And as long as it's kept 100% square, you shouldn't have a problem.
There you go.
I'm booking that half-hour consultation.
Yeah, by all means, go for it.
Oh no, what have I just done?
I have a question. So you're talking about 96 scale, and you mentioned another scale that I'd not heard of before. Are they typical model ship scales? Like in railways, for instance, you have HO and O, and they kind of match up to a 1 in 76 scale, for instance. Aircraft are 1/72nd, 48, 32nd. Cars are 1/24th and thereabouts. And then armor is 1/35th. Is there a ship scale? Do they have a similar?
Yeah, you have 172 and 196 are your main scales, which are your larger ones. But 128 scale was brought out because it was a nice size to put in your car if you want to take it to a boating lake.
Right. Makes sense.
So that was why it was designed that way, because the majority of the models are about 1.5 meters long. And on a state car, you can easily get that in, or a pickup or whatever, you can get that in quite easily. But the likes of the bigger scales, if you have Hood, for instance, excuse me, if you have HMS Hood in 96 scale, that's getting on towards 3 meters in length. So, you are talking of big models, and then you get all the logistics of getting it in and out of the water. You need a cradle to actually put it in and bring it out. Don't get me wrong, they look stunning models and they're great on the water. It's the logistics, and also how many people have got houses big enough to store things like that in?
No, we don't. So it's a remote control thing, and it's a logistics size. That's the difficulty. There you go. Learn something new. And what about tiny bits? When you drop your tiny parts and your little tiny stanchions and little bits, have you got a tip for people for not dropping those on the floor? Because I imagine with all the tiny bits, you are constantly wrestling that carpet monster. Have you got any? Because I noticed you've also got a grey floor with grey plastic. That's not going to work. So what's your tip?
It's a solid concrete floor that I've just painted with grey floor paint, basically. So a lot of cases, because I use a coloured resin, it stands out, because I use a red or a coloured resin like that, so it stands out. But when it's stanchion pins, no, the floor monster eats it. I can never find them. The only thing is just to try and set up some form of shelf edge to your bench. So if you drop it, it doesn't come actually off the edge of the bench, if you can.
Sure.
That's really interesting, the fact that you've managed to defeat the carpet monster by removing the carpet, only to be replaced with the floor monster. I love that. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having guttering on the edge of your bench.
Yes.
Catch all the bits falling off. And then you could sweep it all into like a bucket, and then you'll have a bucket of bits.
Well, that's the only way I could do it, because I've got quite a deep bench, and obviously when you've got a large ship sitting on there, that model's quite close to the edge. So I just got a bit of plastic, L-shaped plastic, and I just stick it on the underside of the bench, just enough so if anything does bounce, it sort of catches on something before it falls off. Yeah. So that's the only thing I can do.
Have you got another little L-shaped one on that as well, in case something drops off the first one, and then you've got another little step for it to land onto?
No, I just got the one, and the floor monster eats the rest.
To be honest,
I like the idea of doing it in red plastic. That's a good idea. Well, red.
I've just got this vision of guttering along the bench edge.
Yeah, guttering.
Literally guttering, and that would resolve spills, of all sorts, liquid or not.
That's a great idea. Yes. I like that idea. Yeah. I'll look into it.
I just use a couple of sort of bench clips, big sort of spring clips, and just hold it there when I'm working. Rest of the time, it's not there. It's just there when I'm doing those delicate bits.
So one last question I want to ask you, actually. Sorry, I'm going to jump in there. Now, I'm going to ask you this question because I'm actually looking on one of your websites, and I noticed there's a very nice picture of you sat at a bench with a booth for your airbrushing. Now, I know for a fact that what's in that picture, you can't get a large scale model in that at all because it's the same as what I've got on my bench. So what do you do? Have you got a bespoke booth, a large booth for your boats, ships?
No, I actually make a temporary one up. I just hang some plastic up around the studio to actually do it, accommodate it, and then just set up an extractor fan to actually draw it out. But obviously, I'm all masked up anyway. But it's difficult because if you've got a couple of metre long vessel, there isn't many spray booths big enough for it.
No. That would be an interesting engineering design in itself. Just trying to make one of those, I should imagine. I don't know. I haven't got a clue how many fans you would need at all for that space. Yeah, that's okay.
But the other thing is, with some of the ships, you need to put up to 10 coats of paint on to get the right level of detail on it. I did a tug for a client, and that had fluorescent orange all the way around it, and that was 10 coats of paint just to get the fluorescent orange to a right level and to get it to look balanced all the way through.
Wow.
Absolutely brilliant. So where do people go if they want to get in contact with you, Paul? Is there a website people should head to? Do you have an email address?
The best thing is to go to the website, which is keycraft.uk. We can always put the live link in. That's the best way. There's a contact details and everything else there. And I say I'm more than happy to talk to anyone if they want some help with learning about starting a model like that. Just let me know and we'll arrange a call.
Okay.
That's a really kind offer.
Do you have a Facebook group?
Yeah, it's again, it's under Keycraft. It's Keycraft_official. Only because there's a gift shop called Keycraft somewhere in the country as well.
Gotcha. And that's not you.
No.
There's something different. All right, Paul. Thank you. James, do you have any final words, final questions?
No, it's been so interesting. And you know what? I think I will take you up. Probably not this year, but I will take you up on that offer to discuss scratch building a hull. I think the challenge of that would be actually something that would float my boat.
Very good. Oh my gosh.
The good thing is, we can discuss it, and then if need be, I can laser cut up all the cross sections and everything else for you if need be. So it's no problem.
For listeners, James is making a happy face. He's clapping his hands. I'm just going to show you this Paul. This is the only ship I've ever built, and it is the Toon version of the USS Moosaroo.
Yep.
A little tiny beast. I don't know if you've seen the Toon tank, the Toon range before from Meng.
No, I haven't seen that one before, but it's an interesting little model.
Oh, they're the best. So they make all sorts of different ones in this kind of squashed, cartoony style, and they're very easy to make. Very simple kits, I did a couple of extra details. I drilled out the barrels, and I lost a couple of pieces that should be on the top, so it looks a bit different. And they didn't come with a share that sat at the front, unfortunately. We were with fishnets on, but she she must have been lost in the guttering, perhaps. But they're really fun, and really really easy to put together. So maybe between builds you could pick yourself up a Meng Toon little kit. They're only like 15 quid or so. There are all sorts of different ships you can do.
Yeah, it looks fun. I think I might have to have a little go at that.
Yeah.
So, while we're talking about things you can have a go at, obviously, you as a listener, you'll be aware of the Tarp build. I would be very interested to see what a ship builder would make with a tarp. So it's a little challenge thrown out at you if you have the time at some point.
That'd be a huge tarp.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
Well, I've got an Austin K5 resin kit, which is a desert version from the Second World War, and that should have a tarp on it. So yes, I'll have a look at doing that. That'd be an interesting little project.
Excellent.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be covering, does it? It can be rolled up and stored. So you could have a huge 3-meter long ship, and then as long as it's got like a rolled up tarp on it somewhere, it'll be perfectly.
Look at the catapult on the Royal Oak.
Oh,
on that photo.
Oh,
that's got a tarp on the catapult on the rear gun.
It has.
I can fire you a couple of other images across anyway. That's no problem.
Yeah, tarps, please. If you can find a picture of a tarp on that, that'd be really good. Very fun, just for the giggles, really. And the very serious build that is the tarp, obviously.
Yes, love a tarp.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. That's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for your time and your knowledge, sharing it with us. I think it's important as modelers that we share our knowledge and our skills and what we've learned and what we've gained and spread the enthusiasm just for the hobby in general.
I really appreciate your time and sort of allowing me to come on and share some of the intricacies that are model making of ships and things.
Do you listen to any other podcasts?
I've listened to a few here and there, but it's mainly your ones that I've listened to that I've enjoyed, because I think it's just the nice general informal chat about all sorts of modelling, and that's what's nice.
Cool.
Is to hear different people's ideas and feedbacks, really.
So, yeah, I just want to echo what's already been said. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. The subject matter frightens me and enthralls me in equal measures, but it's been very informative. And I just want to re-emphasize the offer that you've made. If anyone has a wish to get involved with the larger scale model boats, take him up on the offer that he's offering you, because that 30 minutes would be massively informative for you. And thank you on behalf of anyone that does, that you're willing to take that time and trouble to have that chat. So, yeah, well done you. And you answered the question correctly when you were asked about other podcasts. So, yeah, double tick. Well done. Extra hobnobs over there, please.
It's been a pleasure.
Shipbuilding can be one of those subjects we've mostly avoided due to not understanding the subject matter. But like all new things, we should give it a go.
Maybe going big isn't for everyone. But if you're into your scratch building, then ships are very much an area in which research opens the door to a whole new world.
Next time, we'll just be making conversation on other subjects relating to this daft hobby of ours. You've just been listening to Just Making Conversation with
Malcolm Childs
and James Skiffins.
Follow us on Facebook. What?
It's really simple. It's just two colours. That's all it is. Just two colours.
I know. I can. Do you know what? It's just got colour blindness and you've got word blindness, and together we're just this pile of shit. Let's do a podcast, is it? Follow us on Facebook, where we post photos, updates, and other nonsense.
Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all the others.
Let us know what you are just making and what your thoughts are on the conversation in this episode.
Thank you to all the following supporters from buymeacoffee.com and any of the new people that may have used the paypal.me/podcastjmc.
Johan Frenson, Mike Beep Stucker, Mike Shelley, Mark, Harriet, Elliot, Creddy, Adam, Kieran, Dress the Lagoon, Craig Nichols, Elliot, Robert Lane, Dean, Ivana Build Model Kit, Callum from Micro Machines Podcast, Paint All the Minis Peter, Brad, Warren, Tim Black Rifle, John, Jim, Chuck, Mark Bakawahi, Simon the Jersey Gent, Steve Lee Costas, Mark Ray, Neil twice, Mike, Robert and Andrew and Drew and John, Mike, Jeff, Richard, Lynn, Gordon and 7 others.
If you do show your support, leave your name, because then we can paint the roll of honour on the tail of the next episode. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from him. Oh, no, goodbye from me. I mean, goodbye. I don't like that goodbye from him, goodbye from me business. It's plagiarism. It's what it is. Pure and simple.